Marla sobbed and fought against the two men restraining her as her dearest son was strung up by the arms. He did no wrong, she wailed. He's not of the devil. I swear it on my own grave. The townspeople jeered and spit at poor Matthew. He was still unconscious from being intentionally kicked in the head. His little 8-year-old body had been stripped of shoes and winter clothes. Mayor Winston stood by as the charges against Matthew were read by his wife Sarah. Sarah read from a long sheet of parchment with anger in her eyes. The condemned is hereby guilty of heresy, witchcraft, fellowship with demonkind, necromancy, and black magic. Lies, Marla cried. He done nothing wrong. It won't him. Mayor Winston stood in front of Matthew's limp body. He took a handkerchief from his breast pocket and tried to scrub the dirt from the boy's feet. It didn't come off. Explain this, Winston said. The soil is steadfast. The dogs and the herd animals run from him. Explain, woman. Marla had no defense. The dirt that couldn't be washed away was evidence enough on its own. Bring the smelling salts, Sarah said. Wake him. A townsman came forward and produced a jar. He held the smelling salts up to Matthew's nose. The boy's eyes opened at once, but he was not there. The irises were yellow and the pupils oval. Get the fire, a townsman yelled from the crowd. Let's try to burn this demon out of him. No, don't, Marla screamed. She wailed and sobbed as a torch was lit. Stop that noise, Sarah said. Shut up now. It's his own fault. We got all the proof we need. He is guilty. Winston took a torch. Quiet now. He may survive this yet. Then he can be baptized and hanged properly. The demon can't stay here. Maybe if you had cherished him more, this wouldn't have happened, Sarah said with judgment dripping from every word. I'd cherish my son if I had one. Mayor Winston took the torch and held it dangerously close to Matthew's face. Look, he has no fear of fire. Matthew was transfixed by the flame. He tried to reach out for it, but his arms were still tied. The men holding Marla finally let go. She ran to Matthew and hugged his legs. Burn him, the townsman yelled. Scorch that devil child. Marla tried to untie Matthew's arms, but the knots were too tight for her strength. She wrapped herself around him and wept. Move aside, Winston said, unless you wish to suffer this flame as well. Several of the townspeople pried Marla off of Matthew. Oil was poured on his head and his hair was immediately set ablaze. Marla ran. To the river she raced faster than the town's fastest horse. The shrieking and screaming that came from Matthew was unholy and heart-wrenching. Marla removed her overcoat and tore her dress to pieces before submerging herself in the icy water. She strode out as far as she could and stayed there. The moment her soul left her body, the fire on Matthew went out. His eyes returned to their normal gray. The dirt on his legs and feet disappeared. Quickly, Mayor Winston said, bring a goat. A kid with a curly black coat was brought forth. It didn't buck or kick or try to flee from Matthew. Matthew looked around the crowd in panic. Mother? Mother? Where's my mother? Get him down, Mayor Winston said. To the river for baptism. Two men untied Matthew and dragged him by the arms. The whole town populace gathered at the river to bear witness. Mayor Winston took hold of Matthew and walked out into the water. Sarah followed. Winston recited scriptures from a piece of paper kept in his pocket. He held Matthew by the hair and slammed the boy, face first, into the water. 3 times he did it. The first 2 times Matthew had his eyes closed. For the third and final time he opened his eyes and he saw her, the body of his grieved mother. He reached out to the corpse, but wasn't close enough to touch it. With his entire body submerged underwater, no breathing person could see Matthew's eyes. They had returned to yellow, but the pupils remained round. He was jerked up to the surface with needless force. Winston dragged Matthew to land by his neck. And if you will fetch a rope, Winston said. Quickly now. Nobody moved. Sarah swatted a young man standing near her. A rope, please. Make haste. One by one, the townspeople removed their outerwear and waded into the river in their undergarments. All of the men, women, boys, and girls walked until the water was over their heads, then sat down. Mayor Winston, Sarah, and Matthew were the only living people left in a town of several hundred. Winston showed fear of Matthew for the first time ever. He backed away from the boy with his outstretched arms, acting as a shield to protect Sarah. She stayed close to Winston's back until she hit a tree. There was nowhere else to go. I rebuke you, Sarah said. Unclean thing, you are not welcome here. Mayor Winston dropped his arms and stared Matthew in the eyes. What do you want? Matthew smiled and wrapped his little arms around Winston's waist. Cherish me. Did you enjoy this story, Marla's Anguish? I hope so. There are more to come.